It's not an exaggeration to say that for much of my adult life, if I wasn't working, I was either running or I was drinking. I'm a journalist. For work, that's all I've ever done.
Got that? Well, in a word.
Welcome to the leaders tonight. But first, a story about... Hang on, and both of you, hang on.
How worried are you? Drinking alcohol was just baked into the culture of journalism. Running was like air, and drinking was like the sun. Both were vital. I couldn't really imagine life without either of them. And for most of my life, I've been happy with that. The liquor industry is happy with that too. They say that as long as you don't overindulge, alcohol is good for you.
If you're a light to moderate drinker, all things being equal, you will live longer than people who do not drink at all.
I couldn't really call myself a moderate drinker. I'm one of nearly 1 million New Zealanders who drink too much. The health experts call us hazardous drinkers. There's a definition for that involving standard drinks, which few of us truly understand. But let's just say...
I had some shockers, so we'll swap some stories.
Yeah, okay.
Do you want to hear a shocker?
Yeah, go for it.
Probably my worst one took place in Antarctica.
What?
I'll tell you how that story ends a little later. But one morning, about 2 years ago now, I decided to stop drinking. Seriously, no alcohol at all, ever, forever. I mean, how hard could it be? Quite hard. For me, it wasn't a case of shaking an addiction. It was the horror of realising how large alcohol had loomed in every aspect of life. Days out from a party, I'd be thinking about the logistics of the sober driver. Was that restaurant BYO? Did they serve alcohol on that flight? If we were going on holiday without booze, what would we even do? My first sober night out was a big journalism awards night in 2019.
That was hard. It was packed full of journos, and there were two choices on offer, beer or wine, and then everyone got slaughtered and told war stories. And I thought, fuck, this is going to be a long back nine of my life.
Yeah, I found when I first stopped, I ducked out of events really quickly. Now I don't mind, like, I'll happily have a cup of tea while everyone else is having a beer, but I just find the desire isn't there. Like, I don't find pissed people particularly charming.
No, they're not as funny as they think they are, eh?
No, they're really not.
It's not until you stop drinking that you actually realise that Aotearoa is drowning in booze. If you count up all the on and off licences, there are about 11,000 places you can buy booze, or one outlet for every 330 adults. So yep, the liquor industry has got you covered. And they've decided that people in the poor areas are going to be some of their best customers. Rawiri Ratu has been a Māori warden for 40 years, much of that time here in Otara.
On one particular road in Otara, our kids have to walk past. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5, 6 licensed premises.
On their route to school?
On their route to school. Past them on the way to school, past them on the way home.
Rawiri is the co-chair of the Health Coalition's Alcohol Expert Panel. His focus is on research and advocacy aimed at reducing alcohol harm for Māori. But as well as the facts and the theory, he brings life experience.
I grew up in a rural community and where alcohol was consumed regularly. I saw the physical abuse, the mental abuse, other forms of abuse as a result of the drinking. That drinking culture back then certainly had an impact on the next generation coming through. Because I look at some of my own whānau and I say, oh yeah, your grandfather was a drinker, your father was a drinker, you're a drinker, your kid's a drinker. So what I'm saying is that we need to break that. So people who say, oh, you're a wowser, look, I was a blinking assistant bar manager, and I saw from the other side what drunk people look like. And I thought, oh, hell, that's me. And I stopped straight away. We're not saying don't drink. We're not saying that at all. What we're saying to our own anyway is drink in moderation. Don't go crazy.
That's quite a hard message to sell in areas which are not only saturated in booze, but where alcohol is incredibly cheap. Some of the cheapest works out at about 75 cents a standard drink.
It kills New Zealanders having cheap alcohol. So no, absolutely, when you can buy 6 standard drinks for $4.50 and be intoxicated, is that really the signals that we want to send around our most harmful drug?
Nikki Jackson has been the head of Alcohol Health Watch since 2017 and has worked in public health in New Zealand and Australia. She says alcohol is the most harmful drug we have.
To the user, but particularly to others around them, whether it's their families, whether it's their communities or wider society. So we've got an environment that we've created through cheap alcohol, readily available, highly marketed. It's sending the signals of a pro-drinking culture, and that's something we've got to turn around.
But it's not only that alcohol is very cheap and highly available. The booze industry has burrowed deep into the New Zealand psyche, and we're primed from an early age.
My own boys, when they were 10 years old, ran home one day with some friends, and just by pure chance, I just gave them a little exercise, and they could tell which clubs wore which brand of alcohol. And I thought, that's not healthy. That's what you call brand loyalty. So the advertising agencies are working in that aspect. So I think it's time to rethink it.
Former New Zealand Rugby League coach Graham Lowe is one of the toughest guys you'd meet. He's so tough, the Aussies let him coach an NRL team, a Kiwi. He's no wowser on the booze, but he draws the line at kids being exposed to alcohol ads.
At some stage, we've got to ask ourselves, is this right or is it wrong? It's as simple as that, particularly when you're looking at harm to young children. That is the thing that I'm really focused on. You need to look at your own children and the children in the park. Are we prepared to put their health at risk?
What would your message be to a politician, a minister, a government that was thinking, we really want to do this, but we kind of, we've got the wobbly boot, if you like, we're a little bit nervous about it. What would your message to them be?
Grow some balls. That's it.
But the government didn't have the courage to act on a report by Lowe and other experts, who in 2014 recommended a ban on alcohol sponsorship of sport. And the liquor industry is still fighting it.
Because there's this little thing called evidence, and there's quite a little bit of evidence to show that sports sponsorship by itself and in itself does not increase harmful drinking. And it's harmful drinking we're talking about.
Now Mackenzie.
So unlike tobacco, which was booted out of sponsoring sport in the 1990s, the alcohol industry is still allowed to link itself to our most treasured games. But our biggest booze brands want to dig deeper into national identity. Somehow, they want to link themselves to cleaning up dirty rivers.
It's beautiful, you know, you've got trees coming up, you've got tuis down there, you've got Kereru, the occasional kaka.
Even standing up to America and going nuclear free. Is it just me? Or does it feel kind of weird to you that we allow the alcohol industry to align itself with so many of the things we regard as so precious? Maybe that's why you feel like such an outsider when you don't drink.
The societal pressure is monstrous. I can't imagine any 17-year-old who's at a party. I knew one guy who had the resilience to be like, no, I don't want to drink. And even when, you know, like, standing up to 30 minutes of bollocking from all of your mates going like, what are you doing? Have a drink. That's what we do. That's the cool thing to do. I would not have been able to do that. Certainly not. I wish I had.
We all know there are downsides to drinking too much.
Yes. Get the fuck off my dress. Can you afford it? No. No, you can't afford my dress.
But the alcohol industry wants you to understand the benefits too.
It's not about understanding just the risks, it's also understanding the benefits. And the benefits go beyond potential health benefits and risks. There's also social benefits and risks.
But come on, everyone knows the benefits of alcohol because it's fun to get drunk.
Oh, Guyon, really?
Well, of course.
Did you really say that?
Now I'm in trouble. I got in quite a bit of trouble on my day with Robert Brewer, the Chief Executive of Spirits New Zealand and Deputy Chair of the Alcohol Beverages Council. To me, He was like that guy in the movie, Thank You for Smoking.
I get paid to talk.
Robert Brewer was a very good lobbyist. He was tough too.
Do you know the answer to my question?
I mean, I thought I was the tough interviewer, but this guy was mean.
No, okay, say it again.
I will. It's fun to get drunk.
Well, you know what? Not as much as it used to be. We are standing on the brink of a potential generational change in the way our young people are drinking, which will lead to generational change in the way that everybody drinks.
He made it sound like a sunrise moment, and maybe he was right. As long as you didn't overdo it, maybe alcohol was good for you, like I always used to see it, an essential part of life.
Does alcohol cause cancer?
It's attributable to increasing the risk of causing some cancers, yeah.
It's a class 1 carcinogen, isn't it?
So is sunlight.
One of the first things you realise when you start trying to figure out why the alcohol industry has such a hold on us is, well, it's bloody obvious, isn't it? They have the power, money and millions of customers for an addictive product. Out here in Otara, a group of Māori wardens, South Auckland locals and public health workers are fighting back.
We go into parks, reserves, playgrounds, you'll find broken bottles.
They call themselves Communities Against Alcohol Harm, and their mission is to try and stem the rising tide of booze outlets in South Auckland. But before they share some of their strategies, I've agreed to share a little myself.
It's also, in some part, to be honest with you, a personal story as well. I stopped drinking about 2 years ago. I was someone who drank too much. I was someone who found it difficult to stop drinking. The trigger switch didn't really go with me. I don't have any great big dramatic stories of terrible things that I did or anything like that. I feel like I'm in an AA meeting now. But I never did go to AA. I just stopped one day and I woke up after another big night and just went, no, I'm not doing this anymore.
So if it took a kid from a good home in Christchurch about 30 years of dangerous drinking to figure it out, how hard is it in an area where life throws up so many more challenges?
Okay, so we're going on a tiki tour of alcohol stores in South Auckland.
There's plenty to choose from.
Absolutely, more than you'd ever need.
Is it saturation out here?
Well beyond saturation, in my view.
Grant Hewison has swapped his life as a fancy lawyer to relentlessly bother the liquor industry.
We've got 4 liquor stores within a kilometre in this part of Otara, which is relatively deprived, relatively poor. It's quite a lot.
The odds are massively stacked against poor communities in this battle. To try to stop another bottle store going up in the neighbourhood, you have to take your objection to the District Licensing Committee.
Please be seated.
We sat in on one of the committee hearings, so you don't have to.
Did he bring 6 different bottles to your counter?
But of course the liquor industry can afford to hire high-powered lawyers to fight their corner, and the community, well, mostly they can't afford to do that, and they lose.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
The Auckland Regional Public Health Service looked at more than 16,000 alcohol licence applications over 4 years. Just 180 of those were heard at a district licensing committee hearing, and in nearly 90% of those cases, the liquor licence was granted. So there are bottle shops everywhere here, even one which is virtually inside the petrol station.
So the issue here was you've got a liquor store, in my view, in the petrol station, certainly in the forecourt of the petrol station. You can easily access it from the petrol station. You know, you're walking, what, 5 metres around the corner?
Yep, it'd be 5 metres, wouldn't it?
Yep.
If that.
Not only are bottle stores plastered with ads for the booze companies, but they're decked out in colours that leap out at the human eye.
Certainly my experience that really upsets communities is the dominant colours that these liquor stores choose to use as franchise or brand colours. So this one's black and red, and you know those colours are very dominant for human beings. We use them for emergency vehicles and a whole bunch of things. So when human beings look at something that's black and red, our eyes go to it. You know, it's
red rag to a bull,
yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah, it's a red rag to a bull. There you go.
Even the local school had to give way to the liquor industry.
So when we originally objected, the main gate to the school is actually this set of gates behind you. So people would, drive into the school that way.
So we got liquor store there, school gate there.
Yeah, directly across the road, like 30 metres. It's directly across the road, essentially from a primary, intermediate and secondary school.
And yet they allowed it to go
They allowed it to go through. Subsequently, the school got so annoyed about it over the years that they've changed the main entrance, so it's actually way down there.
And was that part of the reason they moved it?
Yep.
To get away from the liquor store?
To get away from the liquor store.
Yeah. So the school had to move and not the liquor store?
Yeah.
The social harm associated with alcohol has been estimated by economists to be nearly $8 billion a year.
There's a man inside the bar who's being incredibly violent, white shirt, blood all over him, threatening to attack everyone.
Now, the $8 billion figure is contested by the liquor lobby, and it is difficult to tally the costs of all the fights and deaths and car accidents.
Stay out of it. No, shut the what? That's my car. These are my sisters.
A good way to see it is through the eyes of the police alcohol harm unit. We tagged along on the midnight to 4 a.m. shift.
How much of the fights would be alcohol fuelled? I mean, just about all of them?
At this time, yeah, 90% of them, yeah. Alcohol fuelled or relationship fuelled, but probably both usually.
Yeah. More of a problem than the drugs. I mean, people freak out about pee, etc. But booze causing you more trouble?
Definitely more violence on a Friday, Saturday night as a result of alcohol in town. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, creates a lot of victims too. It's not just what people are going to do when they're intoxicated. It's also what other people are going to do to them when they're not aware of their surroundings.
Pretty vulnerable, eh? All right, we've got an issue over here, do we?
The government's 2018 inquiry into mental health said alcohol was a factor in about half of all youth suicides.
Guys, stay here, sit in the corner, you're not going anywhere. You too, you're 17. Yeah. Sit there.
And they are only 14 and 15 and drinking alcohol.
Is that pretty common?
Not really.
That's pretty young.
It's very young. Especially, we're going to find out their parents and find out why they are out here at this time anyway. They shouldn't be out here.
And they had an RTD, Woodstock or something, was it?
Yes, that's correct.
But according to the liquor lobby, that's all changing now. So much so that Robert Brewer doesn't think we have a heavy drinking culture.
No, I don't.
Really? Come on. Do you really claim that we don't have a heavy drinking culture?
Well, you've said yourself that that's 20% of drinkers, not the 80% who drink moderately, responsibly.
But 20%? It's nearly 1 million New Zealanders. It's an extraordinary number.
And there are 3 million who do not. 4 million who do not. So we have 20% of drinkers acknowledged that drink heavily. 80% do not. 80% of New Zealanders drink socially, responsibly and moderately and actually enjoy it.
But he's talking from Pākehā's perspective. He knows nothing about the Māori side of things. They have no idea at all how waipiro alcohol is affecting my people. Absolutely no idea at all. They don't want to know. They don't want to know.
Rawiri Ratu is part of a long tradition. Māori wardens have a 160-year history in Aotearoa.
First Māori warden that was appointed by Pōtatau Te Wherowhero was from Port Waikato. His job was to patrol the Mangatawhiri River to catch the bootleggers coming up there in the boats. And they'd catch them with boots, they'd smash it and tip it all out. He said the association of alcohol and Māori has not been a good one. Never has been. Since way back. You don't know how it's harmed my people. Or if you do, you're deliberately ignoring it. Deliberately ignoring it because you have a responsibility to make profits for your shareholders.
Harmful drinking rates for Māori are something Robert Brewer says the industry does acknowledge. And he says a tax on all alcohol sold gives the Health Promotion Agency about $11 million a year to target these issues. But here's where the liquor industry is really clever. The way Robert Brewer tells it, the alcohol industry actually wants you to drink less.
We stand on the brink, I believe, of a generational change. A generational change in the way that we drink, the way we consume alcohol, and the way we use alcohol.
But are you seriously going to sit here and tell me that you and your industry want people to drink less?
Well, yes.
But you don't want people to drink less alcohol, do you?
Well, why wouldn't we?
Well, because you're selling it and making money from it.
But the fact of the matter is, the world is changing, and my members are acknowledging that by changing as well.
The low-risk drinking guidelines say you should have 2 alcohol-free days a week and a maximum of 2 drinks a day for women and 3 for men. Remember, that's a standard drink, and that's not always easy to regulate. A 330ml bottle of 5% beer, that's 1.3 standard drinks. A standard drink of wine is just 100 mils, or less than a third of a can of Coke. Nikki Jackson says nearly half of alcohol sold in New Zealand is consumed in heavy drinking sessions.
Is it fair to say that the business model is based on alcoholism?
Absolutely.
If everyone stuck to the safe drinking guidelines, alcohol sales revenue would decline by 38%, according to the Institute of Alcohol Studies at the University of Sheffield in the UK. Nikki Jackson says that in New Zealand, about half of those who go on to develop alcohol dependence have done so by the age of 20.
If you've got them before they're 20 and they've developed alcohol abuse and dependence, you've got a consumer for a very long time.
Yeah.
So, in New Zealand, 75% of all alcohol abuse and dependence is before the age of 25.
Even as children, we're heavily exposed to alcohol advertising. An Otago University study put cameras on 168 children aged between 11 and 13. It found that kids are exposed to liquor advertising, on average, nearly 5 times a day. Rawiri Ratu points out that in that study, tamariki Māori had 5 times the exposure to alcohol marketing than European children.
And these ones who say, oh, there's a bottle store, in our street and I walk past, no problem at all. Oh, well, good on you, good on you. You try and run the gambit of walking past 4 or 5, Let me give you an example. In Otara, there's 30 plus licensed premises within 1.5 kilometre radius of Otara shopping centre. You try and pull stunts like that in the more well-heeled areas, you're going to get run out of time. They'll lawyer up with QCs, and there's not a chance. But our communities, like South Auckland, we just don't have the resources to compete with the liquor industry and their wealthy mates.
Tired of losing liquor licensing battles to well-heeled lawyers, Rawiri lodged a Treaty of Waitangi claim, saying that the Crown had failed in its duty to protect Māori from alcohol harm.
Crown, you failed. You ain't done your job. Whether it's you or National or Coalition, you haven't done your job. You've allowed my people to die. You've allowed my people to suffer all sorts of health risks because of this. They've failed. They need to give it back to us. We know our people. We know what the harm is, and we're the only ones who can address it.
He knows from personal experience what that harm can look like.
In my growing up around alcohol, it was ugly. Being sexually abused, only when a person was drunk. As soon as I hit the alcohol, I knew what was coming. I knew what was coming. And there was, there were about 2 or 3 of them, but I knew what was coming, especially if they were all there. At a party or something like that, and they were getting a bit merry, and you think, oh heck, I know it's coming. I know it's coming.
So it's done a lot of damage in your life, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. And
a lot of hurt there, eh?
Yeah.
2 sober guys walk into a bar.
Oh, God. Just a splash.
One is a journalist, and one of them's actually funny.
I had my last drink on December 31st, 2018.
Before that, Rhys had a fairly typical alcohol story. Starts at 15 or so at house parties, goes hard at university, pulls back a little, but his line of work makes that line a little tough.
Because I'm a stand-up comedian, I'm in pubs a lot. I'm in pubs a lot.
Rhys had an on-stage revelation in the spring of 2018.
I was doing a gig and I noticed, I just said on stage, I'm not a big drinker, and I heard the table of comedians laugh. And I was like, and it was one of those ones that makes you just prick your ears up and go, oh, okay, my perception of me is absolutely not what everyone else's perception of me is. And that's, the wheels had already started turning about like, maybe I need to stop drinking and just see how things go. But that was the moment where I was like, all right, I've actually got to give this a crack.
Because that wasn't the punchline.
That wasn't the punchline. I thought that was just like, this is just me, and I was like, oh God, that's how everyone sees me.
I was too frightened to give away alcohol because I knew nothing else. I didn't know how to go out. Every single occasion for me had alcohol associated with it. Not through chemical dependence, through social dependence.
Yeah, it's tribal. You know, it's that thing in New Zealand of like, we are sharing a drink together. That's how we will get to know each other. And if you take that away, we've got no other way of, how do you start a friendship or a relationship with someone without that?
Why is it that we believe that? This is what the story is really about. How have we allowed the liquor industry so much power that alcohol controls something so intrinsically human as our relationships? Was it possible to even form relationships without alcohol? This was high-level stuff. Or was it?
Shit. Piss. Mondays. Didn't think I'd say that sentence in my life, but there we are. Shit, piss Mondays. What's that going to bring up? Okay, SPM, presumably Shit, Piss Mondays, with Matt Jordan. So what is this guy up to?
If you're anything like me, you're absolutely hungover as fuck because it's a long weekend.
My meeting with the rather formal and proper Nicky Jackson has taken quite a turn.
What we do have is a pavlova and a couple of fucking court cases in a can, Cody said percenters. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to mix it.
This Facebook post from Matt Jordan has had more than 100,000 views, and his Instagram posts regularly attract tens of thousands. Now, to be fair to the liquor industry, Matt Jordan seems like he's just doing his own thing. But you don't have to look too hard to find liquor brands promoting binge drinking to sell their products.
Have you ever gone to do a shotgun and thought, where do I stick it in? Well, worry no more, because the Nitro Grenade has a shotgun fun hole to make sure you never miss again. Sleep when you're dead, all gas, no brakes.
Nitro didn't want to talk to us about their product, but its branding speaks for itself. The New Zealand company makes 1.25 litre flagons of 7% RTD drinks that sell for about $10, and cans designed to be sculled down in one go. There's even a target for shotgunning worked into its label design. Now, there is an alcohol advertising code, but then the ones policing the rules are the advertisers themselves.
This is self-regulatory. This is the industry dictating the terms of what's in the code, and the industry that they're marking their own homework.
Nicky Jackson says there should be no alcohol advertising on social media at all. It's just too difficult to control.
This is just blatant, egregious sculling of alcohol, isn't it?
And it's a high-strength RTD. Look, it's high volume, it's cheap. I'm sitting here as a parent, and I would be concerned seeing that image, and I think most New Zealanders would be. This is an age group that experiences really serious harms from their drinking.
So where do young people get their information about alcohol? In high schools, they get it from a program called Smashed.
Hi everyone. Hi guys.
A drama-based program taken up by about 100 New Zealand schools. It's funded by a charity called the Tomorrow Project. So what is the Tomorrow Project?
It's a charitable organisation that's funded by the industry to put in play programs that will help create a moderate drinking culture in New Zealand.
It's a charity funded by the beer, wines and spirits industries.
The trade associations, yes.
Yeah, to the tune of what, $500,000 or $600,000 a year?
Yes, but we also get some funding through other relationships. So at its peak, we had about $1 million.
And maybe Robert Brewer is way ahead of me, but I am struggling to get my head around this.
That's a charitable remit to get people to drink
less
and buy less of their product so that they make less money.
Yes, but I see...
I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling, mate. I'm struggling with the idea that an industry would come out and say...
Hang on a minute. It's not about less, it's about being in business. The world is changing, Guyon. People are drinking less. They are drinking less and making better drinking choices. My members acknowledge that.
Would you allow the tobacco companies to fund smoking messages in schools, or the fast food industry to take classes on obesity or nutrition?
Well, yeah, I think you're overstating our involvement. We provide the funds. Life Education Trust delivers the programs.
Do you have any say over the content?
Nope.
Do you view the content first?
Nope.
You just fund it?
We fund it.
The Life Education Trust also says the liquor industry has no influence over content, and it points out the program does warn students that alcohol can damage the liver, the heart, the stomach and the brain. But Nikki Jackson says crucial information is omitted. The link between alcohol and cancer, yeah, it's mentioned, but it focuses on cancers of the mouth and throat rather than the more prevalent breast and bowel cancers.
So in the teacher resources, those cancers aren't mentioned. And it's the same for industry websites. You find this lack of information about, the most common cancers in relation to alcohol.
Drinking alcohol can increase the risk of 7 types of cancer, a fact the industry is very sensitive about.
It's something that the WHO says directly does cause cancer.
They actually say can cause. They don't say does.
So do you accept, though, that it contributes to 7 types of cancer?
There are a number of cancers that it does increase the risk of if you drink too much over time.
Breast cancer?
Yes.
Bowel cancer?
Yes.
Cancer of the pharynx?
I'm sure you've got the list there.
Cancer of the esophagus, larynx and liver.
If you drink alcohol, the risk of you getting those cancers does increase. So it's the debate is about what is the risk.
In 2020, 750,000 newly diagnosed cancer cases around the world, or about 4%, were attributed to drinking alcohol, according to a study from the Lancet Medical Journal. In New Zealand, drinking alcohol was responsible for nearly 240 cancer deaths in 2012, according to a University of Otago study.
Breast cancer is the leading cause of alcohol-related death in New Zealand women. And about a third of those breast cancer deaths begin from 1 to 2 standard drinks per day. So in relation to breast cancer, there is no safe level of consumption.
Drinking alcohol comes with risk, and particularly with breast cancer, which we do acknowledge is of a higher risk than other cancers in terms of alcohol consumption, particularly if you've got a history of breast cancer in your family.
Well, let's stick with that because, geez, that's serious stuff, isn't it?
Yes.
But only 9% of New Zealanders know that alcohol is even a risk factor for breast and bowel cancer, according to polling cited by the Health Promotion Agency.
If fewer than 1 in 10 are aware of that link, then shouldn't you put it on your bottles?
Well, we may have to, but at the moment what we're doing, we're in the process of trying to put on another label at the moment.
And we'll get to that, but the question was, shouldn't you? You answered, well, we may have to. I'm asking you a question which I guess is an ethical question. Should you?
The International Alliance for Responsible Drinking, which I'm sure you've heard of, which represents the 12, 13 biggest alcohol producers in the world, has just signed up to a deal amongst all its members and member countries to do exactly that.
This was big news. Wow. The alcohol industry was going to put labels on its bottles saying alcohol was a risk factor for cancer. Huge if true. Except it wasn't. Robert Brewer was a great lobbyist, but he'd gone too far with this one. We'd flown to Wellington for the interview, but by the time we touched back down in Auckland, there was a message on my phone. Robert Brewer had been in touch with his colleagues in the liquor lobby across the world, and no, they didn't want to tell the world that much about cancer and alcohol at all. The cancer labels won't be happening after all. Now, there are warning labels coming for fetal alcohol syndrome, but that has been a huge fight.
After more than 20 years advocacy.
20 years?
Just over 20 years
20
advocacy.
20 years of advocacy to get the label.
Wow. This is how hard we have to fight. Alcohol is the most political drug.
You may have noticed those little labels on some products warning not to drink while pregnant. These are the voluntary labels done on the industry's own terms and in their chosen style. But highly visible red-coloured labels warning about drinking during pregnancy will become compulsory in July 2023 in New Zealand. But the liquor industry fought that hard.
97% of women already know that they should not drink when they're pregnant. The Health Promotion Agency in their own research discovered that actually not many people actually look at labels in the first place. So as a medium to convey...
Come on, you spend millions and millions and millions of dollars in the alcohol industry looking at labels.
Well, that's completely different. That's about a brand. That's about brand distinction, not about conveying direct consumer health information. It's not about
Well, you're pretty good at getting people attracted to the product with a brand. Surely you can put some effort into warning people that their babies may get incredibly sick.
Well, that's what we were trying to do, Guy on. And then the mandated process came along.
Why not do it now?
We are doing it now.
But it's 3 years before it takes effect.
Well, because there are a lot of small players out there who print 2 to 3 years worth of labels in advance. That's how they run their business.
Come on, are you saying you can't do it quicker than 3 years?
Well, I've already seen it. That's actually quite a few products already do have it.
Bring out a beer for a cricket game.
For the smaller players, the small businesses, and there are a couple of thousand of those in New Zealand alone that produce wine and various things. They pre-print their labels years in advance because that's the most cost-effective way of doing it.
So in the meantime, 5,500 babies will be born with fetal alcohol syndrome before this comes in.
The fact of the matter is that the majority of labels will have changed well in advance of that 3 year.
It's gig night for Rhys Mathieson at the Comedy Club on Auckland's Queen Street.
Nothing makes banoffee taste sweeter than making all of my friends wait 25 minutes to watch me eat it.
Personally, I can't think of many things that would freak me out more than doing stand-up comedy in front of a live audience. But according to Rhys, drinking isn't going to make you funnier.
I think I found drinking while doing it made it harder because you're less precise. You know, you've had a couple of beers and you just kind of like stumble over some words, but in comedy, you've got to hit your laugh lines, you've got to hit your punches.
It was good talking to Rhys about going alcohol-free because it can be pretty isolating at times. There are 20 years between Rhys and I. He's 30 and I'm the other number. I think his generation is quite a lot better than mine in terms of attitudes to drinking. The numbers do show that problem drinking is less prevalent among young people than it used to be.
Do you want to hear a shocker?
Yeah, go for it.
Probably my worst one took place in Antarctica.
What?
There you go. So I was in Antarctica for TVNZ, and it was the 50th anniversary of Scott Base, and Ed Hillary was down on the plane, and I'd flown him down, and he was there. And we worked really hard for 2 or 3 days, and then there's this bar in Scott Base on the last night, hit the bar really hard. And I was one of those drinkers who, you know, I'd be having a good time and wouldn't be doing anything too crazy. And the next thing you know, I'd just wake up and I'd be going, what happened after 8:30? That was me as a drinker. I didn't have the off switch. And I think there's some science about it. Some people just don't have that bit where you go, that's it. And so I would wake up the next day. And so on this occasion, I hit it and smashed it in Scott Base and then fell asleep in the bar, which was also the sort of common living area. And the next morning, Helen Clark, who was the Prime Minister, Ed Hillary, the Chief of Defence Force, and a bunch of other dignitaries walked out, and I was sort of spread-eagled on the couch with a glass of red wine sort of at my fingertips. I nearly lost my job over that. Like it was a bit of a, you know, but it didn't stop me. That was 2006, and I didn't stop drinking until 2018, 2019. But I had many shockers. Many shockers. I had a career of shockers.
Right.
Can you top that?
I don't know if I can top Helen Clark seeing me spread-eagled.
And he couldn't really. Even his worst one seemed a bit tame by comparison. And I hadn't even told him about the night I spent in a police cell in Christchurch in my early 20s. Maybe it was true. My generation, Generation X, was bad on the booze. And I reckon the generation before us was even worse.
Across the world, adolescents have reduced their drinking. Some of them are not taking it up, or they've taken it up later, or they're not drinking as much. And that is good news because they're protecting themselves, in that really vulnerable period.
The prevalence of hazardous drinking among 15 to 17-year-olds in New Zealand nearly halved between 2007 and 2016. But still, more than 1 in 5 New Zealand high school students are binge drinking once a month.
So it's come down from very high and it has continued to track down, and we're still kind of almost plateauing at around 22%, so 1 in 5 students. It's still big numbers. And when we're talking about our 18 to 24-year-olds, it used to be 40% of them were hazardous drinkers, and now we've got it down to a third.
It's not some niche problem then, is it?
Yeah, we've kind of gone from the top of Mount Everest down a little step. And that's partly because millennials, the Gen Zs, there's a few of them, a pocket of that population that have changed their attitudes around alcohol.
Reese isn't one of that generation, but he is one of the non-drinkers. He's a successful comedian, and these people are popping up more and more in my life now, living really good lives without alcohol.
I felt like I was wasting a lot of time. I felt like I was not emotionally in control of my own life. Alcohol was kind of for me, a part of a larger pattern of avoidance, of avoiding dealing with emotions or things that had happened, in a way of just kind of keeping it at arm's length. And just kind of got to my late 20s and just thought, I've wasted so much time and I'm not happy. What if I try this? And then I tried it and my life immediately got better. Like within a month, it was just an absolute noticeable change, both in my disposition, in the work that I was doing, that made me go like, oh yeah, I should have done this a good couple of years ago.
That's so cool, and part of me is really happy to hear you say that.
Yeah.
And part of me is like, shit, why did it take me to an extra 20 years of my life to do that?
How do you find the rest of your life now that you're not drinking? Your work and your relationships and those other kind of factors?
There's just no wasted time. Like, I can get up early and do stuff. I can get up early and go running. I can get up early and work if I need to. I used to work with crushing hangovers. I used to do live crosses on breakfast TV, hungover as all hell, big time. Have a hangover that would last till 2 or 4 in the afternoon, and then after the 6 o'clock news, I'd, knock it on the head with a
hair of the dog.
Yeah, with a hair of the dog. So I just can't believe the amount of time I have, basically.
Time. I certainly feel I have much more of that. And I feel a lot lighter too. It's easier to keep your weight down when you're off the booze, but this was a lightness of being. It was something Reese had noticed too. Well, not something, but an absence of something.
Hot shame and guilt of just, I have no idea what I did. I have no idea if I need to apologise to people. I almost certainly do, but I don't know to specifically who and what for.
Yeah. Your life is better.
Yeah.
Your life is better.
100%.
My life is better too, but it is very different. And I'm not going to lie, it's bloody hard sometimes. It's not that I miss the taste or the feeling of drinking alcohol. It's that the burden of proof is on me to tell people why I don't drink. Sometimes you can see the horror in people's eyes when you tell them. You can see them trying to imagine their own lives without alcohol. It's still seen as an essential part of life, and the liquor industry wants it to be. But it isn't. It's a legitimate option not to drink alcohol. It can be done. I'm living proof.